Okay, 10 a.m., calling the Design Review Commission meeting of June 22nd to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Manfres,
Here.
Ms. Reedy,
Here.
Mr. Medano,
Here.
Mr. Hummel,
Here.
Ms. Kane, Mr. Sodol,
Here.
Mr. Dudek.
Here. I have a motion to excuse Diana Kane from the meeting.
So move.
Second. Okay. I have a motion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Diana is excused. Approval of the May 11th minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from May 11th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments on the minutes? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? One
Abstain since I was not at the meeting.
I abstain, I wasn't there.
Okay. New business, site plan discussion, 218 West Main Street, Ravenna, Ohio. I will recuse myself.
Yeah, let me start first by reading the section in Design Review 1434. Letter H. I'm missing a number. Design Review Commission shall be an advisor to Planning and Zoning Commission and to other officials and departments of the city regarding the protection of local cultural resources. It shall submit recommendations for site plan review to Planning and Zoning Commission for any listed property or property within a historic district that the Planning and Zoning Commission has authority to review. So we're going to hear two proposals today that are in the historic district with the intent of submitting recommendations for site plan review to Planning Commission, which is holding their meeting Tuesday night next week for both of these projects for site plan approval. You folks should have been given the proposal for the park, the 218 West Main Street across the street. Is it a fair statement that we have, each have these copies?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody have a
Would
copy?
anybody
Is
like?
there a reason there's not a historic design project application?
It's in there.
Is it?
Got it.
Okay.
Is it
There
in
must
the
have been
email?
one submitted, because Pat has it.
I didn't get it.
It was in the email from Julie on 6/15.
Okay.
All right. So who would like to start some dialogue with this project?
Ted. Ted.
You?
Sure. I don't have a lot of dialogue. As you can see, that there's a site plan proposed that will be taken to the Planning Commission on the 27th, as well as renderings. The major features of the park is the walkway going from Main Street back to Locust. There is I guess, are we calling it a pergola? With swings and benches up near the front of the parcel, and there is a stage, plus additional seating area, plus additional tables in the rear of the property, which is screened
Could I have
for
one for
4
Diana?
additional parking spots off of Locust, as well as a fence screening off the Guido parking lot. Additionally, we would be extending and combining Guido's patio, wrapping but it's about 30 feet down, 13 by 30 down into Pocket Park for Guido's patio. We received some feedback during our discussion with council that we wanted to make sure that other establishments within downtown would have the, especially within the Dora, would have the ability to come over and have seating available to them, which is why we added the additional seating down by the stage. That way, no one is excluded. You can see that we've maintained 4 parallel parking spots deeper into the alley for pickup and drop-off businesses in the area, while maintaining parking for other additional, not parking, but access for other additional businesses that use that alley. We tried to pick up on the arch theme that was done when the theater was put in, which you have those light designs going down the pathway that are meant to mimic the arch that is across Locust entering onto the theater property. Yeah, that was why. Correct. So that there's no chance. So what we're looking at is the alley at the very throat, as it comes off of Main Street, has been squeezed down to allow for a single lane of vehicular traffic, but not too wide enough so that someone thinks that maybe they can stop there, park temporarily, run inside, do whatever they're gonna do, come back out, because that was a concern. Because of course that would bottleneck that alley, and sometimes folks don't pay close attention to what's going on. But then it widens back out for the parallel parking after that. The other thing I would point out is that down deeper into the property, past the hedge screening on the west side, all of that's at grade, so that if there's an event, something going on the stage, whatever the case may be, the alley can be closed and the event spread out to utilize that extra space without the curbs and other barriers, in the way. I think that's about it. As far as materials and stuff like that, we've had some good suggestions about using the leftover brick from Prospect Street and things of that nature. And we're definitely going to look at it. As soon as we get through planning commission, we need to put it out to bid, because we're not quite sure yet what kind of costs we're into and whether we've got the budget for everything that's being proposed. If there's room, obviously, those kinds of things we like. I forgot, what was the thing? We're also still trying to figure out how to incorporate the old beams from the trusses that were inside the building that was torn down. They're really cool, they're really huge. The biggest issue with them is they're not weather treated. And so if they're exposed to weather, they're not gonna hold up. But that's about what we got.
Is the Guido's awning gonna stay up all year round?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Could you incorporate the beams in that area, in the ceiling or something? Because the awning would protect them from the weather.
Well, they have a cross-section of 8 feet, so no, it's not feasible.
Well, the trusses are 8 feet deep.
Right.
The individual members are about 10 inches square, say at the top and bottom cord. And they come apart. You take the bolts off and they come apart in pieces.
Yeah, we deconstructed them a little bit for storage, so they do come apart. I mean, when we start looking at putting that bid together for the vendor that's going to do it, or vendors, it certainly can be proposed. Typically, from the awnings that I've seen, they're aluminum frame, they're lightweight. Those trusses might carry a certain amount of weight that might be problematic, but it's always worth looking at. And of course, the one thing I did forget to put on the plan is the historic marker. We have a MOU with the State Historic Preservation Office to place a historic marker when the project is complete, and I forgot to find a place for it. So we may have to address that, Mr. Mayor.
So, Mr. Bogle, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lights along the sidewalk you didn't mention. Is that going to be adequate lighting for the whole park area?
I don't believe that it was intended to illuminate the entire area.
Is there going to be other lighting, do you think? I'm just wondering about
I
lighting.
believe the street lights that we have now will light that
Oh.
park up
Oh,
very
okay.
well.
Okay, so this is just supplemental for the sidewalk?
It's really just a design.
Okay.
Sidewalk and parking.
Yeah, okay, good.
The two arches are the existing arches that we're going to narrow and lower. When they cross the alley, they're 14 or 15 feet high because the beverage trucks would come down the alley, semis, so those arches had to be at street scale. Now we're gonna bring them in and we're gonna narrow them and lower them about 4 feet and take them down to pedestrian scale. So we're gonna come in from both ends, probably a ring and a half or so on each side, cut the bottoms off, re-weld them in, lower them down, and then run steel pieces between the two so that we form the canopy between the two arches that we can run lights on. So we're finding a new home for the arches.
Are the 4 spaces to the rear of the property designated for anybody in particular, or just anybody?
That's up to council.
Okay.
Ted, is this gonna be grass or some kind of turf?
At this point, it's grass.
Good.
I'm gonna try to squeeze turf into it so we can actually utilize it this summer. If not, we won't be able to touch it this summer.
I like grass better, but I know turf's more
Costs more, but you,
durable and looks better all the time.
or if we could do plastic grass, that'd even be better.
Could we make sure that it's urine-proof? Because that's what's gonna turn into, you know, that. But that, I don't wanna sound negative on that, but that's good that we have enough light there, maybe that'll keep some of those people away from there, but, when this was presented to, council originally, and Guido's was here, the representatives from Guido's were here, they talked about a long lease, and that has nothing to do with us here because we wouldn't have anything to do with that. But they talked about a long lease, and he made the statement that it was like 12 to 14, 16 seats on the tables. And now this proposal has been widened from 6 or 7 feet wide for those tables that they thought that they would need to 13 feet wide, which turns into 36 seats. And effectively, that's why the bump out into Parkway has had to happen, because to be able to put those, I would have to ask the architect on that. I'm sure that's why, because to get those arches in there, you'd have to have more space to get over there then after
Yeah, that's not
you've been
true.
moved there.
It bumped out so that there wasn't the opportunity for somebody to park next to the alley there.
I had always thought that that was the key, to just try to keep as much parking in town as that we don't have anyway,
That
but,
hasn't been our concern.
okay, I obviously it hasn't, but I thought that most people here would like to keep parking spaces, especially for the businesses that are available downtown. That's just
To
a
my
thought.
knowledge, that canopy has always been 13 feet wide. I've drawn it 13 by 30 since. day one.
It was just not shown in scale, because I got pictures that show it, just one set of chairs and tables along the building, and the thing, I have the old ones somewhere here, that it was, there again, I've seen about 5 different proposals here, even at our meeting the last time, that we had one with, one wall with nothing on it, that And then there were pictures of walls with faux windows and an entryway for Guidos, which is what will need to be there if they're going to get that. And then, like I said, I know it's in my email, I didn't make a copy of it, that was, I don't think it was 13 feet, but it may be. I won't argue with the man that.
The original was 13 feet, 7 tables. 3 tables next to the building, 4 tables away, and you lose a table where you come in and out and have a waitress station. So there were 28 seats originally. Now, when the awning turns the corner, can they put a 2-top or another 4-top as they turn the corner? Probably. But initially, it was a separate awning in the front, separate awning on the side.
Yeah.
with 28
I know I have a thing, it only shows one, but that's neither here nor there. That's what you're proposing, and that's fine.
And that the fencing doesn't allow anyone to exit there, right?
Correct. And they have to come and go through the front door of Guido's to get into that seating area. Or at least they can go through the gate in the front and then make a left and go around the building. When it was 2 separate ones, they had to go in and then go back out again.
Okay.
And since I know you know that, that railing will be low enough, though, in case of emergency, that they could go over it to get away from Guido's if there was a problem?
Well, there's multiple ways to get out.
Okay. Yeah, but not, it sounds like there's only one way with
They
a
can go
clear.
outside and they can go inside.
There's a gate out front into that area?
Well, it's all one area. It's going to wrap around
Yeah.
the buildings.
Yeah.
So they can go back around the
Oh,
building
yeah.
and out.
I just wonder, and how high are those fences or railings?
3 feet, 3.5 feet, something.
Okay, that's usually big and low enough that you could get out if there was something. You know, because if there's a fire or anything up there that would block those 2 that are towards the front, you wouldn't want to have to go that way. You could get over the side, and that's way low enough to be able to do that, yeah.
It cuts that area down, doesn't it?
Any other,
In here is just.
any other
becomes there.
comments or questions?
Yeah, when you get that, when you put that in and stuff.
Yeah. Looks good.
What would design review's pleasure be for a recommendation to planning commission with the particular, with this site plan?
I can vote for myself.
My point of view is that I think it's a really nice asset to the city. And I would recommend it.
I'm sorry, Eric, could you repeat that?
Oh, in my point of view, it's a great asset to the city, and I would recommend it.
Need a motion for design review to approve this?
Yes,
Make a motion as presented?
correct. Eric, you're making a motion to accept it as submitted, presenting a recommendation to planning commission?
I'll do that.
I'll second his motion.
All right, Eric's first, Patrick second. All right.
Did you second it?
Yes.
Okay.
I have one comment that may be beneficial. Where the 2 shrubberies are up against the mural, if those were elevated with stones, then it would provide additional seating.
Oh,
And I think they could be accommodated fairly inexpensively, something like that. Just for more seats during an event.
There are a lot of people that are worried about, they like the mural. I guess that's a great idea, but not to get them too high so they don't cut away with the space
So
of the actual.
16
mural.
inch is generally a seat.
Yeah, it shouldn't
Seat
bother.
height,
It
right.
shouldn't bother, okay.
Okay, that would be my only, and we can add that to the recommendation, I suppose, but we need to take a vote.
I think that should be an amendment to the,
Okay, we'll
to
amend
the
it.
motion. That the 2 planters, the semicircle planters in front of the murals be elevated to 16 or 18 inches for possible seating.
No, you made the original motion. You,
Second the amendment.
so he's gonna second the amendment.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Okay. Do you vote on this?
No. Abstain.
Okay,
You-
Angie Reedy.
Yes.
Let's see. Diane's not here. Cliff Soto.
No vote.
Lee Dudek.
Yes.
Patrick Medanio.
Yes.
Eric Hummel.
Yes.
Let me
And-
clarify that. That was not a no vote. That means that I'm not voting.
You're not.
Okay,
Okay.
please, to clarify.
Okay.
So, for the record, Ted abstained,
Yes.
Ted, yes.
and Cliff
Abstain.
did not vote,
I might, it probably should be stated abstained.
abstained, okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I put it wrong.
Okay. So, in this case, the motion passes, and it will be presented to Planning Commission as site plan approval with the particular contingency
The
of
other question is making them.
elevated
Put these windows in. put
flower
these
bed, or
windows
whatever
in.
they're called, okay. All right, so we'll move on to the
They're
next
gonna put
item,
the
which is
windows in.
library.
They're gonna put these windows in up here just to make it look, match the front.
Did I give you a copy?
What's that?
Did I give you a copy?
I don't need one.
Right, just
I can bring more.
fake window. Right.
Okay. Good.
Okay, let's go.
All right, Jason, you want to present the project? 'Cause I think those are going to be questions. You're welcome to.
Reading your sign, it says turn on the mic and speak on the mic. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Kentner. I'm the consulting landscape architect and working with the library since this was a master plan project several years ago. What we have in front of you today is our overall site plan and some specific details related to the proposed pre-engineered pavilion that's slated for as part of the project. From a site plan perspective, the project was really initiated by the library at a time where they were considering resurfacing the rear parking lot just based on condition. And so at the time, the board of trustees decided to spend a little bit more money and to really think about what they could do to improve the landscape or outdoor space amenities of the library property overall. So when I came onto the project, some of the first things we did were parking and circulation studies, which led us to where we are right now. Basically, the proposal is to, if you know the library site well, is basically to encourage traffic to the signaled intersection and use that to access the lot into the future, while still providing one-way drive access to the current book drop. We expect that over the life of this project, meaning beyond my lifetime, that the use of the book drop may dwindle as circulation types change. So we really see the rear parking lot as the point of arrival for most of the visitors to the library. So in doing that, we reconfigured the parking lot to actually reduce the overall area of paving. There's right now a lot of kind of secondary spaces and parking spaces kind of tucked into the various circulation areas. And what we've done is basically make a big simple rectangle. So we have, I think, the same number of parking spaces, maybe one or two more even, and fewer and less surface area. And the other thing that we've done, which was really a high priority for me personally, was to eliminate the pedestrian and vehicular conflicts that exist between the parking lot and the rear entry to the library, because I was just there this morning, and I'm always greeted by that big yellow sign that says, beware oncoming traffic and all those types of things. So at this point, every parking space to the library side, which is both accessible or ADA parking, as well as general parking, exits immediately onto a sidewalk, which is uninterrupted to the rear entry of the library. The pavilion is kind of situated adjacent to that to kind of activate the site more broadly, and for the library's purposes, to provide them a functional, sheltered outdoor space that they can use for both community and library programming. The pavilion, like I mentioned, is intended to be a pre-engineered structure, so we have it in our design documents basically as a conceptual design that will go through a third-party vendor once a contract is awarded. And that structure does feature a kind of back wall that's storage, so functional for the library's purposes for holding tables and chairs and whatever other else kind of temporary needs they have in that, so keep everything nice and tight. The back side of that, which runs parallel to the existing alleyway, is also a bit of a screen from the alley, so if you're sitting in the pavilion, you're not looking immediately onto the alleyway behind the American Legion there. And that's a space, I don't know if it's really illustrated on that set, but it's conceptually another place where we thought long-term there could be a mural on the back side of that storage structure. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to walk things through. And I do have, I don't know if it's applicable or not, but I do have some updated renderings because the library has had an informational display, and I just brought those with me, so if anybody has want or desire to see those to supplement what's in the package, I'm happy to show them.
So the early plan that was presented was to expand the front out to the south and do away with 7 parking places. That's not happening
So
in
that's
this now.
That's a proposal that I believe is in front of council and will be if it happens, will be a later thing, has always been that way. It only got kind of brought to the forefront because we've been talking with the city. We understood that there might be some Main Street paving happening this year, and we wanted to kind of put some attention to that. So really this winter, that project, and I know that's how it came to council as early as it did. And now we understand that to be happening in later 2024. And so at this point, while the library would still want to see that happening, we know that it was always if it can be worked out between the city and the library agreement. And our understanding right now is that I think there's an overall plan that's being done for the downtown with respect to assessment. And right now, I think the perspective of the library is certainly to wait and see what the recommendations are for feasibility from that effort and table it until that process is done.
Okay. The other thing that comes to mind here that I didn't see on the proposal, maybe I missed it, was or is where are you planning to put the recycling bin and the refuse bin so it is out of sight and also easy enough to pick up where the trucks can come straight in? You're not going to be able to keep it in the same spot there, I don't think, are you?
No, that same space is actually displaced by the reorganized parking because we're
Right.
basically creating head-in parking on there. So the new location is pretty much opposite the book drop. So it's is some existing parallel parking or head-in parking that I think is dedicated mostly to people in and out and maybe some staff that park there in the morning. So along that book drive access from Main, it's kind of at the end of that, so it's a simple drive-in and continue out behind the American Legion. So it's really serviceable from that perspective.
It's going to be protected by fencing and stuff, so it's,
Fencing
you can't see it,
fencing and landscape
obviously.
screening, yeah, there's all that required in
Screening.
zoning and typical construction, yeah. And there's also, just because again I was there, there's also a third-party recycling bin that is, as I understand it, not intended to be, I don't know how and when it showed up, it's been there for years, but that would not be our intention to have that kept on the property. And as I understand, the pickup schedule is about once a week for the library on general refuse. Trash cans are always a good question. They're never thought of, but there's always.
Well,
a good
along with that comes, and I suppose you're lucky there, maybe there's an apartment above the dentist's office. A lot of times it's been brought up, and I know I complain about it, a lot of times they pick up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so you get awakened by the noise. It seems to happen to me every time I'm at a hotel, no matter where I am in the world, that it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's all about turning radiuses and
right,
traffic
and the
stuff,
noise
yeah.
of picking it up. So having it somewhere, you're lucky there, I suppose, if that's just an apartment, that it's not housing there that would be noisy for them in the middle of the night. If not, it might be better to be someplace else out in the large parking lot. But the deal there is you want to make it as close as you can for the people to dump, from the library to go without to walk through snow and ice and
Exactly.
everything through the winter. And
With bins pavilions, it's always that serviceability versus visibility, and sometimes they get pushed to the extremes of property limits, and then they become very visible for the general public walking by, and you realize you're arriving at the library, which is, from a county perspective, one of the heaviest, kind of draws to the city, and you don't want people arriving at a trash can.
No, because it turns into a community trash can.
Well, there's that as well,
Sure,
yeah.
yeah.
Visible is accessible, yeah.
Right.
I'm with Friends of Goodell down in Columbus, and we have several receptacles that,
Community.
community, and when they need to be made, I don't know, temporary barbecue pits, they are made that as well.
Wow.
So, yeah, trash receptacles always an adventure. This location is fairly fortunate and discreet relative to all those considerations.
Any other
I have a
questions?
question, yeah. Why can't that pavilion be up to where this rock reading area is, and the rock reading area be down where the pavilion is?
It's really about a circumstance of found space, if you will, and so, the library right now, their outdoor programming is pretty much limited to, they have food truck Fridays and a few other things, and so what we wanted to do is maximize the amount of outdoor spaces, and we really see it as, the front door, that entry plaza has a little bit of congregation space, the little reading garden is a second congregation space, and the pavilion is its own thing, is a separate thing. With respect to the scale of those three things, it's a bit like doing an event center where if there's a kind of birthday party in one room and a big wedding in another, shared wall is kind of tough, and so I think having the bit of space for both parking, drop-offs, all that kind of stuff, and even just the noise of an event that might be at the pavilion for the sake of other things happening was a logical place. And it's also just and I'll say this just to be simple about it, it's sitting in pretty much exactly the footprint of that little secondary parking lot. So even with respect to, impact on existing trees, need to do additional excavation with respect to stability of soil for pouring a pad, we know that that's already a compacted area. So also, every time I break an egg kind of on a site, trying to think about what I have to pay to undo as a landscape architect, and so the location where it's at, as far as the reading garden and that type of thing, there's when you're in that space existing, there's what we call the island at the library, which is the kind of garden space, if you will, that's separated by two drive aisles. All we're trying to do is kind of stitch that back together, and one big thing that's allowing us to do is keep the majority of the existing trees that are in those islands, because we're bringing the site up to that top of curb level, and so it's all a flush walkway. So it's a lot about keeping trees that have been growing for 20 years since they did the expansion.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to recommend to Planning Commission approving the site plan as submitted?
I'll make a motion to submit to Planning Commission as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, got it. Okay, roll call. Mr. Mambrus?
Yes.
Ms. Reedy?
Yes.
Eric Hummel?
Yes.
Mr. Dudek?
Yes.
Mr. Soto?
Yes.
And Mr. Madania?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, old business. Nothing on the agenda.
But I'll add that we were approved for the CLG grant. We got word the other day, we were awarded $18,000. We will have a match of $12,000. So we, at the next meeting, possibly, which I think I'm on vacation, but it can still come before, we haven't, I have to think, did we accept CT Consultants as,
No.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
opposite. Wasn't voted on, I think we were voted on that we wanted prospectus, isn't that right, Ted?
Yes.
Prospectus, okay, prospectus, all right. But, so we did approve, design review did approve prospectus.
Correct.
Okay, so the intent would be to move forward with that through design review, and then we'll move it through city council authorization to enter contract with prospectus. And then we can start that process.
Nice.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's old business.
Public comment.
I have an item of no business, might not be applicable, but recycling has stopped in Ravenna?
No.
Pardon me? Well, it stopped for my building, and I just wondered if...
Commercial, yes.
Yeah,
I think they went 4 units and more, they stopped for residential. And it's my understanding, as I said, business also.
I think it's unfortunate, but...
Appears to me that council's gonna have to do something about that completely, because if we don't do something now with Kent dropping out completely out of the county program, we're gonna be the butt of paying for the county to do it, because we're the largest one left in there. So somebody's gonna have to make a decision sooner or later to protect the customer and the people that live in the city here. It's necessary, but it's gonna go up tremendously once they've lost Kent. They won't be able to snap. I have my doubts if they're gonna stay in business anyway because of that. Other places have dropped out also. So Kent's done, starts next week, I think,
Yeah, 1st
with
of July.
Republic.
I think 1st of July.
With Republic, yes.
Okay. Hearing no further comments. Motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 10:37.
I know I have something else here, but it's quick here that